I fell in love with a man who lied about who he was. But the worst part is discovering that I might be lying to myself about who I am. The coffee cup trembled in my hands as his green eyes studied me across the small cafe table. Daniel had that look again, the one that made me feel completely seen and utterly terrified at the same time. "Emma," he whispered, reaching for my hand. "What if everything you think you know about yourself is wrong?" I should have run. Instead, I leaned closer, drawn to the mystery in his voice like a moth to flame. Because the truth was, I'd been running from my own reflection for months, afraid of what I might remember. What I didn't know was that he'd been hunting me all along. The Luna Cafe bell chimed at 9:47 a.m. when he walked in. Dark brown wavy hair, intense green eyes that held secrets, and a smile that made me forget I was holding scalding coffee. "Careful," he said, steadying my trembling hand. "We wouldn't want you to get hurt. Electric shock. Real, not imagined. First time here, I managed." "I hope it won't be the last," he replied, studying my face like memorizing every detail. Something calculating flickered in his gaze, but I only focused on how his eyes crinkled when he smiled. "I'm Daniel Rivers. Emma Clark." Something shifted in his expression at my name, gone so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. He chose the corner table, perfect view of where I worked. I felt his eyes like a physical touch, warming my skin from across the room. Daniel returned daily. Same order, black coffee, no sugar, same table. By the third day, he was studying my paintings on the cafe walls. "You painted these?" His focus made me feel truly seen. "You have a unique eye for capturing emotion. This one, it's like looking at a memory that hurts." My heart stopped. The painting showed a woman's silhouette on a bridge, painted during my darker moments when fragments haunted my dreams. "Sometimes I paint things I don't understand," I admitted, stepping closer. Like memories from someone else's life, Daniel's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Maybe they're trying to help you remember who you really are." Recognition shot down my spine. Like he understood something about me that I didn't. "You talk like you know something I don't," I said, stepping closer. "Don't we all have secrets, Emma?" His hand almost touched my cheek before pulling back. "Some we keep from others, and some we keep from ourselves." The cafe felt too small. Air crackled with tension that had everything to do with how he looked at me, like I was a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve. What scared me most wasn't his intensity. It was how desperately I wanted him to figure me out. What I didn't know was that Daniel Rivers was Detective Marcus Stone, and he believed I was a killer. "What kind of books do you write?" I asked during his 5th visit. "Crime novels, psychological thrillers," he replied smoothly, pulling out a leather notebook. "I'm researching human behavior patterns." The lie rolled off his tongue effortlessly, but I was mesmerized by how he listened, asked the right questions about my past. "Do you remember much before your accident?" He'd ask casually, scribbling notes he claimed were for character development. I didn't tell him about the nightmares where I woke screaming, hands covered in what felt like blood. I didn't mention memory fragments that flashed like broken glass, a woman's voice screaming, something breaking, the sensation of falling. What I definitely didn't tell him was that sometimes, half awake, I remembered pushing someone. Hard. Meanwhile, Daniel lived his double life. After leaving the cafe, he'd drive to the police station where Detective Sarah Chen waited with files and growing impatience. "You're getting too close, Marcus," she'd warn. Emma Clark was the last person to see Victoria Manning alive. The victim's blood was on her clothes. She fled and conveniently developed amnesia. Marcus stared at Emma's mugshot. Nothing like the vulnerable artist who made his coffee with trembling hands. "She doesn't act like a killer," he'd argue, unable to explain the surveillance equipment he'd placed around the cafe. The deeper he dug, the more convinced he became Emma was hiding something. But was it guilt or trauma? "You're compromised, Stone." Sarah slammed the case file down. "Either arrest Emma Clark or I'm taking over." But Marcus wasn't the only protective one. Tom Bradley, the cafe owner, watched Daniel's visits with suspicion. "That guy asks too many questions," Tom warned Emma. "He wants something. And it's not just your coffee." Then there was Dr. Rodriguez, Emma's therapist, pushing harder each session. Suppressed memories don't disappear, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Your mind is protecting you, but avoiding it won't make it go away. What if I don't want to remember? Emma whispered. What if what I did was unforgivable? The question haunted her, especially when Daniel looked at her with those intense eyes. Was he falling for her? Or waiting for her to confess? Victoria's sister Lisa called daily, demanding updates. My sister is dead, and that woman walks free, serving coffee like nothing happened. Victoria was going to expose something about Emma, something big. Marcus hung up, hands shaking, because he was starting to hope Emma was innocent. Not for justice, for love, and that terrified him more than any criminal he'd ever faced. 3 weeks of daily visits created a routine that felt dangerously like intimacy. But the evening Daniel stayed after closing changed everything. Emma, you're shaking. Tom noticed as I struggled to clean red paint from my hands. I'd been working on something dark and violent I couldn't explain. As Tom left, Daniel appeared. Let me help, he said softly, taking my hands in his. The red paint looked like blood under dim lighting, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Panic attack, drowning! I can't get it off, I gasped frantically. There's so much blood. Emma, look at me, Daniel commanded gently, cupping my face. It's just paint. You're safe. His touch anchored me. Those green eyes held mine while his thumbs stroked away tears. I'm scared of myself, I whispered. What if I'm not who you think I am? What if I'm terrible? Something shifted in his expression. Pain, conflict, guilt. But his voice was fierce with protection. You're not terrible. I see who you are. The way you care about everyone. How you paint beauty even in pain. How you try to remember instead of running. That's brave. How can you be so sure? Because I've spent weeks watching you, learning you, and nothing about you suggests cruelty. Weeks watching me. It should have alarmed me, but it felt romantic. He'd chosen to see me when I couldn't see myself. Daniel, I breathed. And suddenly we were kissing. Tentative at first, then deeper when I kissed back. Sweet and desperate, protective and passionate, like he was pouring certainty about my goodness into me. I don't know what's happening to me, he whispered. Me neither, but I don't want it to stop. The next morning, everything was different. Daniel walked in cold, professional. Just coffee. To go, he said curtly, avoiding my fingers. Daniel, about last night. It was a mistake, he cut me off sharply. We shouldn't have. A mistake? My voice was small. His mask slipped briefly. I saw the man who'd kissed me tenderly. Then it was gone. I'm not who you think I am, Emma, and neither are you. He left without another word. What I didn't know, an hour earlier, Sarah had confronted him with photos of Emma and Victoria together, laughing, hugging, clearly close friends from months before Victoria's death. Emma told you she didn't remember knowing the victim, Sarah said relentlessly. But they were best friends for 3 years. She's been lying about everything. Marcus stared at the photos, world tilting. Either Emma was faking amnesia completely, or selectively remembering what was convenient. She played you, Sarah concluded. So Marcus had built walls around his heart, decided the kiss was manipulation, not love. Emma's tears were performance, not pain. But walking away, one thought haunted him. If she was such a good actress, why did her pain look so real? And why did breaking her heart feel like destroying his own? For 3 days, Daniel didn't come to the cafe. 3 days of me jumping every time the bell chimed, hoping to see those green eyes. 3 days of Tom shooting worried glances as I painted obsessively during breaks. On the 4th day, I made a surprising decision. I painted Daniel from memory, capturing every detail I'd absorbed during our weeks together. The tiny scar cutting through his left eyebrow. How his jaw tightened when thinking. The exact shade of green in his eyes when he'd called me brave. But it was the scar I painted that stopped my breath. A thin white line along his collarbone that I'd glimpsed when his shirt shifted during our kiss. How did you know about this? I spun around. Daniel stood behind me, staring at the canvas. Know about what? I asked, heart hammering. He pointed at the scar, the one he always kept hidden. This. I've never shown this to anyone. I paint what I see. But you couldn't see it, he said softly, stepping closer. Emma, what else do you see that you shouldn't be able to? I see you, I whispered, fighting with yourself about something. You came here with a purpose, but now you're not sure. You look at me like you want to protect me from something. But maybe protect yourself from me, too. Daniel went still. You see too much. Or maybe you don't hide as well as you think. He reached out, fingers barely brushing the painted scar. You painted me like you know me. Maybe I know you better than you know yourself. That's impossible. Is it? Right now you're thinking about kissing me again, but also about walking away, torn between what you want and what you think you should do. His eyes widened. How could you possibly? Because I feel it too. Whatever this is, it's bigger than both of us, and it scares me just as much. His hand covered mine against his chest, heart racing. Emma. He breathed like a prayer and curse. What Emma didn't see. Daniel photographing her paintings after hours, uploading them to police databases where software analyzed every face she'd painted. She's painting crime scenes, Sarah observed, pointing at Emma's work. A woman falling from a balcony, 2 figures struggling on Victoria's building. Daniel stared, blood running cold. She said she paints things she doesn't understand, like memories from someone else's life, or memories she's pretending not to have. But hidden in Emma's apartment, Daniel found evidence that didn't fit. Victoria's necklace. Yes, but also unsent letters about debts, threats, feeling trapped, love letters to a married man pressuring her to disappear. Daniel pocketed the letters before Sarah could see them. You're protecting her, Sarah accused. You're withholding evidence. I'm being thorough, Daniel lied. Marcus, she's been having nightmares about pushing someone. Her therapist's notes are right here. She remembers arguing with Victoria. She remembers violence. Memories can be unreliable, especially after trauma. Meanwhile, Emma's dreams became clearer. She saw herself arguing with Victoria, blonde, angry, desperate. Remembered betrayal, fury, hands pushing, struggling, someone falling. But she remembered something else. Victoria hadn't fallen backward off the balcony. She'd jumped forward like trying to grab something, or make it look like she'd been pushed. Dr. Rodriguez, what if someone wanted to fake their own death? What if they used me as a witness? Tell me more about this theory. What if I didn't push her? What if she jumped and I was supposed to look guilty, but doubt crept in? In her clearest memory, she wasn't trying to save Victoria. She was trying to stop her from revealing a secret that would destroy everything. The second separation came not with anger, but heartbreak. Emma found surveillance equipment Tuesday morning while cleaning. Tiny cameras, recording devices positioned to capture her every move, word, breakdown. Her hands shook as she gathered each device. The coffee machine, the back office, even the bathroom. When Daniel walked in at 9:47 a.m., she waited with evidence spread across his table. Explain this, she said quietly. Deadly calm, Daniel stopped dead, face going pale. Emma, were you watching me shower? Recording me crying? It's not what you think. What I think is everything you said about seeing the real me was a lie. You weren't seeing me, Daniel. You were hunting me. The word hunting hit him like a physical blow. I can explain. No, you can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. You made me feel safe, made me believe someone could see past my damaged memory to who I really was. But you were collecting evidence. Emma, please, get out, she whispered, tears falling. Get out and don't come back. Daniel reached for her, but she flinched away. You want to know what I remember? I remember trusting someone completely, believing that person would never hurt me, and being wrong. She looked at him with profound disappointment, worse than hatred. I thought that person was Victoria, but maybe it was you. Daniel left the equipment and walked out, knowing he'd destroyed the only real thing in his life. Sitting in his car, watching Emma cry through the window, one thought consumed him. She'd remembered trusting someone who betrayed her. What if that someone wasn't him, but the woman she was accused of killing? What if Emma wasn't a murderer, but the victim of an elaborate frame-up he'd just made infinitely worse. The breakthrough came during Emma's final therapy session. Dr. Rodriguez suggested hypnosis. "Tell me what you see, Emma." "I'm in Victoria's apartment." "She called me about James." "What does Victoria tell you?" "She's been sleeping with him for months. She's pregnant. My best friend, my maid of honor. What happens next?" "I'm screaming." She laughs. "Says James never loved me, only wanted my inheritance. They planned it together. The relationship, engagement, everything. After marriage, Victoria would confess the affair. James would divorce me, take half my trust fund." "How do you feel?" "Destroyed, but also relieved. I always knew something was wrong." "What happens then?" "I tell her I'm exposing them. Victoria gets scared, says she owes dangerous people money. James promised to help pay them back with my money." Emma's breathing became rapid. She goes to the balcony. We're arguing. She's desperate, saying she has a plan. Looking over the edge, and I realize she's going to jump. "Kill herself and frame me for murder." Emma bolted upright. She jumped. I tried to stop her. At that moment, Marcus received a call. "Stone, Victoria's sister found a suicide note dated before her death. It's a confession. Victoria planned her own death and framed Emma Clark." The confrontation happened at the police station. Emma entered in handcuffs as Marcus read Victoria's note. "Take the cuffs off," he ordered. "You remember now. Everything. Victoria planned her death. I tried to save her." "I know," Marcus said, holding up the note. Emma stared. "You're a cop. Not Daniel Rivers, the writer. You're a police detective. Detective Marcus Stone." Emma laughed bitterly. "The man investigating me. Who put surveillance in my bathroom. Explain how you made me fall in love with a lie. Held me while I cried, when you were trying to make me confess. The feelings were real. How can I believe anything?" "Because I love you," Marcus said desperately. "Love? You don't love me. You love the idea of saving me, the challenge. But you never tried to know the real me. The real me would never forgive someone who lied like you did. Never trust someone who watched through hidden cameras. Never love someone willing to destroy my life for his job." She walked toward the door. "Congratulations, Detective Stone. You solved your case. Too bad you lost yourself." Emma was released but moved to a coastal town. Marcus resigned. The letter that arrived 2 weeks later destroyed him. "You loved the broken version that needed saving, but you never loved Emma Clark, the real person. The real Emma Clark would have helped you solve this case if you'd asked. But you'll never know her now, because I'm never going to be that trusting again." Marcus read it 17 times before understanding. He'd murdered the part of her that could have loved him honestly. 6 months later, Emma built a new life in Lighthouse Bay, a quiet coastal town where nobody knew her story. She rented a studio apartment above an art supply store and began painting again. But her art had changed. Where once she painted from emotion, now she painted with deliberate control. Safe seascapes, portraits of strangers who couldn't betray her. Nothing that revealed her heart. "You're holding back," observed Mrs. Chen, the store owner. "Your technique is perfect, but there's no soul." Emma smiled politely, pleasant but distant. Sometimes safe is better than soul. What Emma didn't tell anyone, she still dreamed about Marcus. Not nightmares, but worse. Dreams where he was honest from the beginning. Where he walked into the cafe as Detective Stone investigating Victoria's death, asking for her help instead of confession. Where they solved the case together, trust building slowly, love growing from truth instead of lies. She'd wake with tears, mourning not just what they'd had, but what they could have been. Meanwhile, Marcus had hit rock bottom. Suspension became resignation after the internal investigation. His apartment was a disaster zone of takeout containers and case files he wasn't supposed to have. He'd become obsessed with cold cases, working as a private consultant for families who couldn't afford hope. Penance, he told himself, using his skills for good instead of destruction, but every case reminded him of Emma. Every family he helped find closure, made him think about the closure he'd stolen from. Her, "You're drowning in other people's pain because you can't face your own," Sarah told him during rare visits. "I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me," Marcus replied, staring at photos from Emma's case. "I turned love into a weapon. So what are you going to do?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "What can I do? She told me never to contact her. She's building a new life. The kindest thing is staying away. the kindest thing, would be becoming the man who deserved her in the first place. The catalyst came from Dr. Rodriguez. Emma almost didn't answer when her phone rang during a supply run, but something made her pick up. "Emma, I know you asked me not to contact you, but I need to tell you something about Detective Stone." Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I don't want to hear about him. He's been calling me every week for 6 months. Not asking about you, he knows I can't discuss sessions, but asking about trauma recovery, rebuilding trust after betrayal, how someone heals from the damage he caused." Emma pulled over, heart racing. "What are you saying?" "He's trying to understand your healing, not his own. He's reading psychology papers on trust and betrayal, attending trauma recovery seminars, learning about the specific hurt he caused you." "Why?" "I think he's trying to become someone worthy of forgiveness. Not to get you back. He seems to understand that's impossible, but to become someone who'd never cause that pain again." Emma sat for an hour after the call, staring at the ocean. 3 days later, she painted Marcus. Not Daniel Rivers, the charming writer, but Detective Marcus Stone, tired, guilty, broken by his choices. A man carrying his mistakes, trying to be better. As she painted, memories surfaced. Smaller moments she'd forgotten. How he'd flinched when she mentioned not trusting people. His shaking hands that first time comforting her panic attack, like he was afraid of doing wrong. The genuine confusion when she'd read his emotions so accurately. He was falling for me too, she realized. He wasn't expecting to feel anything real. It didn't excuse the lies or erase the manipulation. But it complicated her neat narrative of victim and villain. What if they'd both been victims of a situation spiraling beyond control? What if Marcus Stone was as broken by their love story as she was? The thought terrified and intrigued her. Because if Marcus was truly trying to become better, not to win her back, but because he understood his failures, then maybe the part of her that had loved him wasn't foolish. Maybe it had seen something, real beneath the lies, maybe some mistakes, could teach people to be worthy of the love they'd destroyed. The question was, did she have courage to find out? Emma stared at the painting of Marcus for 3 days before understanding what she was seeing. Not just a broken man, a mirror of her own transformation. She'd spent months building walls, creating safe art, keeping distant. She'd chosen safety over connection, control over vulnerability. I'm hiding just like he was hiding. Marcus had lied about his identity, but she'd been lying too, to herself about their connection. She'd felt it before knowing who he really was. He wasn't just investigating me, he was protecting me from his own investigation. Emma called Dr. Rodriguez. When Marcus calls you, what exactly does he ask? He asks about recovery from emotional betrayal, how someone rebuilds trust, whether it's possible to heal from trauma caused by someone you loved, and about forgiveness, not how to earn it, but how to live with never receiving it. He doesn't think I'll ever forgive him. He seems to understand some damage can't be undone, but he's trying to ensure he never causes that damage again. That night, Emma painted from pure emotion. Deep blue betrayal, fierce red anger, but also warm gold of love that had been real. She realized something that changed everything. She wasn't angry at Marcus for lying about who he was. She was angry for making her believe she was worth loving, then taking that belief away. But what if I am worth loving? Marcus's transformation had been profound. He'd learned radical honesty. Even when it cost everything, he'd started small, admitting he'd taken Emma's case because her photo intrigued him, confessing he'd hidden evidence because he wanted to be her hero. I robbed her of agency in her own story. Marcus quit cases that reminded him of Emma. Instead, he focused on missing persons, reuniting people separated by circumstances. Marcus made himself findable and waited for Emma to come to him, if she chose. He moved back to the city, rented near Luna Cafe, volunteered teaching self-defense to trauma survivors, adopted a rescue dog named Truth. Every morning, he walked past Luna Cafe, proving he could exist in their shared geography without trying to control the outcome. Tom noticed. "You're that detective." "Former detective." "I resigned. You broke that girl's heart. I know. I needed to prove I could be in this neighborhood without taking space that belongs to her." 3 weeks later, Tom approached again. She sent me a painting. He handed Marcus a photo, Luna Cafe glowing with warmth. At their corner table, 2 figures sat in honest conversation. She titled it, Second Chances. For the first time in months, Marcus felt hope. Emma returned to the city on a Thursday morning in October, exactly 1 year after everything had fallen apart. She'd driven through the night, her car packed with canvases and a heart full of terrified determination. She found Marcus exactly where Tom had said he would be, teaching a self-defense class at the community center, surrounded by women who looked at him with trust and respect. Emma watched through the window as he demonstrated a defensive move, his voice gentle but firm. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to your space. Your boundaries matter. Your safety matters. The irony wasn't lost on either of them when he looked up and saw her standing there. The class ended, and Marcus walked outside slowly, like he was approaching a wounded animal that might bolt at any sudden movement. "Hello, Emma," he said quietly. Keeping his distance. "Hello, Marcus," she replied, and the use of his real name made something shift in his expression. "I know you told me not to contact you," he began, but Emma held up a hand. "I know about the classes, the therapy, the cases you've been taking." She stepped closer. "I know you've been trying to become someone different." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. "I also know," Emma continued, "that you've been walking past the Luna Cafe every morning for 3 months, and you've never once tried to look inside. How do you—" "Tom has been sending me updates," Emma admitted. "He wanted me to know that you were respecting my boundaries even when you thought I'd never find out." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. "I saw the painting you sent Tom," Marcus said finally. "Second chances." Emma took a deep breath. "I painted it because I realized something. We never had a real first chance, Marcus. You were Detective Stone pretending to be Daniel Rivers. I was a trauma victim pretending I didn't have secrets. We fell in love with masks." "Emma, I'm not finished," she said, stepping even closer. "I came here to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. No masks, no protection, no trying to give me the answer you think I want to hear." Marcus nodded, his green eyes never leaving hers. "If we met today as we really are now, Emma Clark, the artist who survived betrayal and chose to heal, and Marcus Stone, the former detective who lost everything and chose to rebuild, would you still want to know me?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus was quiet for so long that Emma started to think she'd made a terrible mistake. Then he spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "Emma Clark, the woman brave enough to face her worst memories to find the truth, the artist who paints with such honesty it breaks hearts and heals them at the same time, the person who's strong enough to extend second chances even when she has every right to walk away." He paused, stepping close enough that she could see the tears in his eyes. "I would be honored to know that woman. Terrified, because she deserves so much better than I'll ever be. But honored." Emma felt her own tears start to fall. "And I would want to know Marcus Stone, the man who admitted his mistakes and did the hard work of changing instead of just saying he was sorry. The man who teaches women to protect themselves instead of trying to control them. The man who chose to be findable instead of doing the finding." "So what happens now?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now," Emma said, reaching up to touch his face the way she had that first night. "We try something revolutionary. We try honesty. I'm scared," Marcus admitted. "I'm scared that I'll mess this up again. I'm scared that I don't know how to love someone without trying to save them or fix them or solve them like a case." "I'm scared too," Emma replied. "I'm scared of trusting someone completely again. I'm scared that I've changed too much, that I'm not the same person you fell for." "Good," Marcus said, covering her hand with his. "We should be scared. People who aren't scared don't fight hard enough to protect something precious." Emma smiled through her tears. "Is that what this is? Something precious?" "Emma," Marcus said, his forehead resting against hers just like that first night. "What we had before was beautiful, but built on lies. What we have now, this terrifying, honest, imperfect thing, this is real. Real is messier," Emma warned. "Real is stronger," Marcus countered. Real means I'm going to have days when I remember the surveillance, equipment, and I'm going to be angry all over, again. And real means I'm going to have days when I hate myself for ever making you feel unsafe with me, Marcus replied. Real means we're going to have to choose each other every day. Not just in the moments when it's easy, Emma, Marcus said, cupping her face in his hands. I want to choose you every day. In the easy moments and the hard ones, when you trust me and when you don't, when I'm worthy of that choice and when I'm not. Even knowing it might not work, especially knowing it might not work, Marcus replied, because the alternative is living the rest of my life, knowing I was too afraid to fight for the most real thing I've ever felt. Emma looked into his eyes, really looked, the way she'd learned to see through her art, and saw no masks, no performance, no manipulation. Just a man who'd been broken by his own choices and rebuilt himself into someone worthy of a second chance. Marcus Stone, she said, her voice steady and sure. Would you like to have coffee with me? Somewhere new, where we can start fresh. Emma Clark, he replied, his smile breaking across his face like sunrise. I would be honored. When he kissed her, it was nothing like their first kiss. That one had been desperate, confused, built on secrets and lies. This one was choice. This one was truth. This one was two people who'd survived the destruction of everything they thought they knew, and decided to build something better from the ruins. No more masks, Emma whispered against his lips. No more masks, Marcus agreed, pulling her closer. Just us, exactly as we are. Scared, scarred, and still choosing each other. The best kind of love story there is, Marcus said, kissing her again. 2 years later, Emma stood in the gallery where her latest exhibition was opening, watching Marcus help hang the final piece. The collection was titled Truth and Perception, paintings exploring the difference between what we see and what we think we know. The centerpiece was a diptych, 2 paintings side by side. The first showed a woman and man in a cafe, separated by lies and shadows. The second showed the same couple facing each other directly, hands intertwined, surrounded by light that revealed every flaw and imperfection, and somehow made them more beautiful for it. You know what I love most about this piece? Marcus said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What? Emma asked, leaning against his chest. The first painting isn't wrong. That's really how we were. Broken, scared, lying to ourselves. But the second shows what happened when we decided to stop hiding. Emma turned in his arms. Do you ever regret how hard we had to fight to get here? Marcus was quiet, considering. They'd had difficult days, moments when old fears surfaced, when trust felt fragile. But they'd learned to face those moments together. I regret the pain I caused, the time we lost, the trust I broke. But I don't regret that we went through it, because it taught us how to love each other honestly. Even the surveillance equipment, Emma teased, especially that. It taught me the difference between watching someone and truly seeing them, between wanting to solve someone and wanting to support them. The evening wound down when Marcus led Emma outside to the gallery's rooftop garden. The city sparkled below them, full of lights and possibilities. I have something for you, Marcus said, reaching into his jacket. Emma's breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside wasn't a traditional diamond, but a stone that shifted colors with light, deep blue and shadows, warm gold and brightness, with flashes of green that reminded her of his eyes. It's a color-change sapphire, Marcus explained nervously. Perfect for us. Something that shows different facets depending on how you look at it, but always beautiful, always real. Emma's eyes filled with tears as he dropped to one knee. Emma Clark, you've seen me at my worst and chosen to help me become my best. Will you marry me? Not because I need you to complete me, we're both complete now, but because I want to build a life with you. A real one, built on honesty and choice. Yes, Emma whispered, then louder. Yes, Marcus Stone. I will marry you. As he slipped the ring on her finger, the stone caught light from below, shifting from blue to gold to green, a perfect metaphor for their journey. You know what the best part is? Emma said as they held each other, looking out over the city where they'd first met, first fallen apart, and finally found their way back. This time, we both know exactly who we're choosing. No masks, no lies, no pretending. Just us, as we really are, cured, scarred, and still choosing each other, Marcus agreed. The best kind of love story, Emma finished, kissing him as the city lights twinkled around them. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding your perfect match. They're about finding someone willing to grow with you, to face truth together, to build something real from the ashes of what was broken. Sometimes they're about discovering that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being authentic. Your heart knows the way. Subscribe and follow the beauty.